My name is Grace Miller, and I live in a blue house on Maple Street in Boston, America. The house is old but solid, with a narrow porch and a door that sticks on humid days. We bought it 12 years ago for less than it is worth now, and the last appraisal said it stands at around $800,000. I can point to each corner and tell you a story. The front room is where Thomas and I ate pancakes on Sundays. The back room is where we kept our books, a mix of American novels and a few travel guides we bought for a trip to Europe we never took. The oak table in the kitchen has a pale circle on it from a hot pot Thomas forgot to set on a trivet. I never sanded it down. I like the mark. It feels like proof that a life really happened here. Thomas died last month. The funeral was small, and the day was clear in a way that felt rude. We gathered at a church near the public garden. The flowers were white. I wore a black dress that pinched at my ribs. Friends came from New York and Philadelphia. Samuel hugged me and said, "He was the kindest man in America." Lily pressed a tissue into my hand and didn't try to talk. People told stories, and I nodded and smiled the smile you have to learn for funerals, the one that says thank you for loving him. When I got home that night, the house was too quiet. I set my purse on the chair where he used to hang his jacket. I stood in the hallway and listened to the stillness until my ears rang. In that first week, I made lists because lists put a fence around chaos. I called the bank. I changed the name on the electric account. I put his shoes in a box and then took them back out and lined them up by the door again, as if the right order of laces might keep him close. I went to see our lawyer, Mr. Carter, in a glass building downtown. He has kind eyes and a habit of sliding a small bowl of mints across the desk as if grief could be softened with sugar. He asked if I was sleeping. I said sometimes. He gave me copies of the will and the trust in a neat folder and said, "Grace, things are in good order." I liked that phrase, good order. It sounded like the bed made tight and the sink empty and the mail in a pile you could face. A week after the funeral, my sister Nora asked me to come to Providence for her son's first birthday party. Just a few people, she said, cake and balloons. She has a walk-up on a narrow street, 2 bedrooms, a small back porch that looks onto a strip of grass and a fence. I brought a stuffed bear with a soft belly and tucked $50 in a card with a blue balloon on the front. The drive from Boston was steady and simple, the sky flat and quiet. I kept the radio off. I let the wipers brush away a light mist that never turned into real rain. When I got there, her place was loud in the way of happy homes. A baby laughed. A blender whirred. Someone had made a cheese plate look like a smiling face. Nora was bright and busy in a red sweater. "You made it," she said, pulling me in. "Thank you for coming." I kissed the baby's soft head. People I half knew told me they were sorry about Thomas, and I said thank you, because there is no other word that works. I ate a cracker. I held a paper cup of lemonade and thought of how Thomas used to tease me for picking the least sweet drink at any party. We sang for the baby while he blinked at the candles, unsure why fire was on his cake. Nora held his tiny hand to help him clap. I felt the pinch of missing Thomas in a new way, the way that shows up when there is joy and you have no one to lean against, and share the look that says, "Can you believe this little face?" I thought of how he had loved children, how he crouched to tie a loose shoe, how he kept dollar bills in his pocket to tip fast when he saw good work. The baby smacked frosting across his cheeks, and everyone cheered. For a moment, I let the sound wash over me like good rain. Then Nora cleared her throat and raised a glass. "Everyone," she said, "one more thing." Her voice rang against the walls. She turned to me, and her eyes were bright, but not wet. "Grace, I have an announcement." The room quieted in a slow ripple. She took a breath and said, "My son is Thomas's child." Time did an odd thing then. It did not stop, but it spread thin like batter in a pan. I tasted sugar, and behind it something like metal. The room made a small sound, something between a sigh and a hiss. Someone set a cup down too hard, and it clicked against a table. The baby hummed to himself and smacked his cake again, happy in the only way that matters. Nora took a folded paper from her purse. "Here is Thomas's will," she said. "As inheritance, I'll take half of your $800,000 house." She said it all in one breath, like a gymnast at the end of a tumbling run, sticking the landing with a smile. She held the paper out to me, and a few guests leaned in, as if the words might fly off the page like birds. I looked at the paper. I did not take it. I looked at my sister's face. I looked at her son's face, soft and open and shining with sugar. I felt my mouth tilt at the corners, an almost laugh that rose all by itself, like a bubble in a still glass. I pressed my lips together to keep it in. Laughing would have been cruel, and I am not cruel. But the truth stood beside me like a calm friend with a hand on my shoulder. Thomas had told me the truth, and the truth had paperwork and signatures and dates that mattered. There is a steadiness in that, a floor that does not shift even when someone tries to pry up the boards. Around me, people did the things people do when a room tilts. One woman whispered, "Oh my God," and then pretended she had not said it. A man cleared his throat 3 times, as if that might fix the air. The baby dropped a fistful of cake, and it landed with a soft splat that sounded like a period at the end of a sentence I had not yet spoken. I set my cup on the counter. The counter had a nick in it, the size and shape of a small coin, and I wondered, absurdly, whether Nora's landlord had charged her for it. Money makes people think strange thoughts. Grief does too. I said very softly, "Oh, I see." I said it the way you speak to a skittish dog, voice even, hands low. I did not reach for the paper. I did not list dates or names yet. I did not say the word trust, or the name of Mr. Carter, or the city where we signed the last documents, or the figure 200 pounds, which Thomas once joked about when we paid for certified copies to feel official and grand. I did not say any of that because there is a time to say everything and a time to say almost nothing. Inside my chest, where the laugh had pressed, something steadier took its place. It was the feeling of a key in a lock. It was the shape of my house in the morning light, blue and stubborn and mine. It was the memory of Thomas's hand in mine when he said, in the plain words he liked best, "Grace, if the world gets noisy after I go, trust what we set in place." I thought of Boston and the drive home, and the folder in my desk, and the cool weight of facts. I thought of Europe again, the trip he wanted for us, and how grief had turned that dream into a map I keep for later, not a thing I had lost. Nora lowered the paper a little, waiting for me to break. I did not break. I felt the room take a breath. I heard a car pass by outside, steady and distant. I turned to my sister and said, "Thank you for telling me." I let the words stand on their feet. Then I added, "Shall we step outside to talk?" My voice was calm. My hands were steady. The baby sneezed and laughed at his own sound, and for a second, everyone looked at him and smiled. The moment loosened its grip on the room. As I followed Nora toward the back porch, I felt the old life and the new one meet in the narrow hallway. The old life had Thomas in it, warm and real, reaching for the coffee mugs, humming little tunes as he looked out the window onto Maple Street. The new life had me alone, but not lost, my back straight, my feet sure. I touched the card with the $50 still tucked inside my purse, and I thought of how even small bills carry a kind of heat when people wave them in the air to make a point. I thought of how a house is more than wood and glass. It is a promise you keep to yourself about where you will sleep and wake and breathe. We stepped onto the porch. The afternoon light lay pale across the tiny yard. The fence held steady, the way fences do when they are set deep and true. I looked at my sister. I looked at the paper. I kept my laugh close, like a secret is kept not out of fear, but out of care for the right moment. Because my husband, well, I will tell you about my husband. But first, I will let the rain start. I stood on Nora's small porch and watched a thin rain stitch the air. The party sounds faded behind the screen door. A paper banner that said one sagged a little as the damp came in. I took a slow breath and felt my ribs loosen. "Nora," I said, "I will tell you something Thomas told me. I will tell you why I said, 'Oh, I see.'" She folded her arms and held the old paper like a shield. She looked ready to swing it at me if I said the wrong word. I kept my voice even and low, the way I speak to myself in the mirror when I need to be brave. 2 years ago, in Boston, Our life took a hard turn in a clean hallway with bright lights. After surgery, Thomas sat with me at our kitchen table in the blue house on Maple Street. The table was the oak one with the pale circle from the hot pot he once set down without a trivet. He put both hands around a mug and said, "Grace, I can't have children. Not with you. Not with anyone." He said it in the simple way he always chose for hard things. I took his hands and said, "We are still us." He cried a little. I did not then. I made tea. I toasted bread. I told him that love is still love when a door closes. He nodded, and we held that truth the way you hold a warm plate with two open palms so you do not drop it. Soon after, we met with our lawyer, Mr. Carter, in a glass tower downtown. He has a tidy office with a view of a slice of Boston and a silver bowl of mints that catch the light. He set a neat stack of papers between us. "Let's put your house and your savings in good order," he said. I like that phrase, good order, because it means the bed is made, the sink is clear, and the future has labels. We signed a new will together. We also made a living trust. The trust placed the house in my hands as trustee. It had clear lines about false claims and bad faith. It said, if anyone used a made-up child or a sudden story to try to pull money from my grief, that person would receive nothing. It was not cruel. It was careful. Mr. Carter stamped things, a notary signed things, and we paid for certified copies, pound 200, just to make Thomas grin at the little dash of Europe in the middle of our American day. Thomas put one full copy in the safe behind the linen shelf. He slid another copy into a blue folder in my desk. He tapped the folder and said, "If the world gets noisy after I go, this is the part you can trust." He always made a point of using the word trust both ways, the paper and the promise. I kissed his hand and promised I would remember. On Nora's porch now, with the rain turning steady, I gave her the short version. I told her the medical truth without details. I told her about the trust, the signatures, the date at the top of the page that was this year, not 3 years ago like the old will she was holding. I told her where Mr. Carter worked and that he would pick up his office phone in the morning. "He will show you the record," I said. "He will explain the clause that bars false claims." My voice did not shake. I felt the house in that moment, even though I was miles away in Providence. I could see the blue paint. I could feel the cool banister. I could walk the rooms in my mind and count the dollars we had poured into repairs with joy and with care. Nora's mouth tightened. "He told me he would help me," she said. "Last summer in New York. I needed $2,000. He gave me $500 and said he loved my boy." She looked toward the kitchen where the baby squealed at a plastic spoon. Her eyes softened and then hardened again. He said we were family. "We are family," I said, and I let that truth stand. Sometimes family means a meal or a ride or a check, not a father on paper. Thomas gave from his pocket because he was kind. Kindness is not paternity. Cash is not law. An old will is not the last word. I kept my hands at my sides. I did not reach for her paper. I did not wave mine. "If you need help with rent," I said, "say that. If you want to take half of my $800,000 house because you think grief makes me weak, then please know you will be speaking to a judge, not to me." She blinked fast. I saw the moment where the story she had built began to tilt. The porch light clicked on with a soft hum. Behind us, a guest laughed at something small and silly. I thought of Thomas's letter in the safe, only a page, easy words, the kind he loved. I thought of America in the rain, of the way a city glows when every surface is wet, and how streets in Boston feel both old and steady, like they can hold you up. "Come by the house tomorrow," I said at last. "We will call Mr. Carter from my kitchen. We will put the papers on the oak table. We will keep the baby away from the pens. If what you need is help, we will talk about a fair amount. If what you want is a fight for my home, I will meet you in good order." I did not raise my voice. I did not flinch. I felt Thomas at my shoulder, quiet and sure, the way he stood beside me when we looked at a map of Europe and promised to go one day, even if it took years. Nora stared at the old page in her hands. She folded it once, twice, again, until it was a small square. The rain slowed. She did not say sorry. Not yet. She only said, "Tomorrow," and opened the door. I stepped back into the warm noise of the party and picked up my purse with the card and the $50 still tucked inside. I kissed the baby's head as I passed. Truth has a soft weight when you carry it right. I held it all the way to my car. Morning came gray and clean. I drove back to Boston with coffee in a paper cup and the radio low. My house on Maple Street looked steady in the soft light, the blue paint a little brighter after the rain. I unlocked the door and set out what we would need. The blue folder from my desk, the deed to the trust, the copy of the will with this year's date, and the small receipt that once made Thomas laugh. Pound 200 for certified copies, paid in an office that smelled like paper and mint. I wiped the oak table and felt the faint ring where he had set down a hot pot years ago. That pale circle always makes me breathe easier. It says, "A life was lived here, and it left its mark." At 10, Nora rang the bell. She stood with her son on her hip and a diaper bag slung over her shoulder. Her face had the look of a woman who did not sleep much. "Come in," I said. "We will make this simple." She set the baby on a blanket with a wooden train. I poured water into the kettle and placed 2 clean mugs on the counter. Boston felt close around us, the way a city does when windows are shut against the late morning chill. "I want you to know," she began, "that I loved Thomas too." She looked at the floor, then at the folder on the table. "But I also need to pay rent, Grace. I am late by $700. The landlord in Providence is not kind about it." "You could have said that," I answered. "We are family. You could have asked for help, not half a house." I opened the folder and slid the trust across the table. This is the paper that speaks now. The title sat in bold type. Under it, our names. The trustee line with mine. The clause that barred false claims, set out in plain words. The notary stamp from Boston. The date, this year. I turned the pages slowly, so she could see the shape of the truth, not just hear it. She took a breath. "He showed me a will," she said in a small voice. "I thought it was the last one." "It is not," I said. This replaced it. I placed the old will next to the new papers, so the dates stood side by side like 2 small clocks, one set wrong, one set right. I pointed to Mr. Carter's name and number. "We will call him now." I put the call on speaker. Mr. Carter answered in his even tone. I could picture the silver bowl of mints on his desk, the view of the slice of the city. "Good morning, Grace," he said. "Good morning, Nora. How can I help?" I told him the short version. He asked for the document dates. He asked for the stamp details. He spoke with care and without heat, the way a good map speaks. "Nora," he said at last, "the trust controls the house. The last valid will is the one Grace has. The clause you ask about is clear. If you bring a false claim, the court can sanction you. That could cost dollars you do not have." Nora pressed her lips together. The baby rolled the small train and made a soft chuffing sound. I watched him and felt the small ache that comes when future plans fall away. Thomas and I had once traced a path across Europe on a paper map. We kept the map in a drawer by the stove. It is still there, folded and neat. "Mr. Carter," Nora said, "if I admit I was wrong, can I still ask Grace for help? Just help, not a fight." "You can always ask," he said. "The law will not stop you from being kind to each other." I ended the call. The kettle clicked. I poured hot water over tea bags and slid 1 mug to Nora. "Here's what I can do," I said. "I will send $500 today. Not because of a story, but because I am your sister. Next month, we can talk again. No more papers waved at parties. No more old wills held like swords. If you need more than I can give, we make a plan with numbers, not with threats." She nodded, eyes bright. "I was scared," she whispered. "I thought drama would make me strong." "Drama makes a loud sound," I said. "Truth makes a strong floor." I reached for my checkbook, the old kind Thomas liked. I wrote the numbers and signed my name. The baby squealed at his train and bumped it against the ring on the oak table. I did not move my hand to stop him. Marks tell a story. Mine will be about care. Before she left, Nora ran her fingers over the blue paint by the door. "This house feels like him," she said. "It does," I answered. "And it holds me up." I watched her walk down the steps to the street. The city air was crisp and bright. I closed the door, slid the folder back into the desk, and stood still in the quiet. My heart felt steadier. My feet felt sure on the wood. Good order, I thought, and let the words settle like light. I slept well that night for the first time since the funeral. Morning came soft over Boston, and the blue paint of my house looked calm in the early light. I brewed coffee and opened the safe. I took out the letter Thomas wrote before the last surgery, the one on thick paper with a small crease at the corner where my thumb always lands. I read it again at the oak table with the pale ring. "Grace," it said, "you have the house and you have your own good sense. If the world gets noisy, trust what we set in place. Help where you can. Laugh when you must." His words felt like a warm coat. I folded the letter and slipped it into the blue folder, then into my bag. I wanted it near me as I moved through the day. I spent the morning putting my house in order. I tightened a loose hinge on the porch door. I dusted the long shelf where we kept our books, a row of American novels, and a few guides for Europe we never used. In the bedroom, I opened the trunk where we kept trip plans, old maps, train notes, a list of hotels priced in dollars and pounds so Thomas could play at being practical and grand at the same time. I smiled at the tidy columns. Even in grief, I loved that part of him, the simple joy he took in neat lines. Around noon, Samuel stopped by with bagels from a place near the common. He is tall and kind and wears grief the way some men wear a heavy coat, polite but always present. We ate at the table, and he asked about Nora. I told him what happened and that we were done with drama now. "Good," he said. "Drama is a thief." I laughed at that because it is true. He set a white envelope by my plate. "This is from the choir," he said. "They took a collection. It's only $300, but they wanted to help with anything the house needs." I touched the envelope like it might break. "Tell them the gutters will thank them," I said. "And tell them I will, too." After Samuel left, I walked to the bank on the corner. I deposited the choir's gift and transferred $500 to Nora, the amount I had promised. I kept the receipt and wrote "rent help" on the top in my cleanest handwriting. It felt right to name the thing. On the way home, I stopped at a printing shop and made a fresh copy of the trust. I paid a few dollars for a simple folder and wrote my name on the tab. It is not that I expected more noise. It's that quiet goes best with readiness. Back home, I opened the windows. The city air was crisp and bright. In the gust, a paper map of Europe slid from the trunk onto the floor. I knelt and smoothed it, and for a breath I saw our old plan. London in spring, Paris for 3 nights, a train north. The ache that came was not sharp. It was round and kind. I pinned the map to the wall above the desk, not as a wound, but as a window. Late in the afternoon, Nora called. "I got the money," she said. "Thank you." Her voice was small but honest. I spoke to Mr. Carter too. He was clear. I was wrong. We were both quiet for a moment. "Do you want to come for dinner Friday?" she asked. "Just soup. Just us." I thought of the porch, the baby, the old wool folded to a square. I saw her trying to choose a new way. "Yes," I said. "Soup sounds good." Evening came. I made tea and sat by the front window. The blue house was warm behind me. The street lights ticked on, one by one, like careful stars. I wrote a short note to myself and taped it inside the safe. Trust. Kindness. Good order. Then I put Thomas's letter back where it belongs. Before bed, I walked from room to room and touched what we had built. The banister, smooth from years of hands. The kitchen tile we set together one long weekend. The door that sticks when the weather is humid. I said out loud, "This is my home." It felt steady to say it. It felt true. Tomorrow I will call the gutter man and spend a bit of the choir's $300. Next month I will check on Nora and see if she needs help again. One day, I will use some saved dollars and take that map off the wall and fold it into my bag. I will cross the ocean to Europe and back to America, and I will come home to this blue house that holds my grief and my joy like a pair of open hands. I turned off the light and let the quiet sit. The world may get noisy, but I know the sound of my own voice now. It is steady, it is mine, and it is enough.